news flow is one thing, but it looks like we're proceeding to a situation where a coalition of American technology companies and others will be able to keep TikTok going in the United States. But there's a big phone call on Friday. And in your analysis and expertise of the relationship between the United States and China in the tech domain, how central is the success of that phone call to this happening?
I don't think that the phone call itself is going to be what this deal hinges on. My sense is that they've already established a framework through which the U.S. part of TikTok will divest from the Chinese parent company ByteDance. And I think Friday's call is really just to seal that deal and make an announcement.
We cover this. I'm based in the United States, right, and work for an American news organization. But we always come at this from the U.S. point of the negotiating table. How do you evaluate how China feels about TikTok being able to continue in the U.S., but some concessions being made that would impact China and ByteDance?
Right. I think this is, well, I think first and foremost, the Chinese have made it pretty clear they do not want to sell the algorithm, that they want to separate the platform from the algorithm, because it's the algorithm that is really the secret sauce here for the whole thing. And so trying to tease those two things out, the algorithm from TikTok USA, I think is really important to them. But then there's a lot of issue linkage going on here. There are so many aspects. So TikTok, I think, is part of a broader set of discussions on trade between the U.S. and China. And so I think this is really an important part of that, but emblematic of, I think, what it seems Trump is trying to do, which is harmonize a little bit that relationship between the U.S. and China.
In terms of data, how safe, or at least from a national security perspective, how able is U.S. data to be now protected in some way from flow over to China, as Congress hopes?
Right. That was the important thing for Congress, which is, well, there were two aspects for Congress, which was, one was the algorithm, which was the ability to manipulate through the algorithm. But there was always the question of data. And even without the algorithm, the data is still very powerful. As you probably remember, Cambridge Analytica never touched Facebook's algorithm. But with the raw data that they had, they built profiles of individual users, tested messages, and then micro-targeted them. And the TikTok data is even more revealing than that. So it's just not just posts and likes, but watch times, rewatches, pauses, shares. All those signals are an exposure of attention span, emotional triggers, hidden interests. So whatever foreign entity would perhaps still have a backdoor to that data. And so far, I haven't seen anything on the technical side about how the U.S. and what part of the deal would address that possible backdoor access to the powerful data.
Sarah, it's so interesting because all of this comes in the broader view of U.S.-China relations, and you sit at that intersection: technology, geopolitics, national security. Is TikTok the thing that we should be that worried about when we're also looking about AI relationships?
Well, it's an interesting question because, and I've puzzled over why Congress, which passed this law and it was signed into law, has not really pushed back on these constant extensions. Because if this was such a national security threat, you would think it was a threat a year ago, and the 90-day extensions are just kind of perpetuating that threat. And I think part of the implicit realization is that even if you address TikTok, it's really the tip of the iceberg, and all these other national security tech issues, including the AI question, which I think is just in some ways looms even larger.